Welcome to Mental Millennials with your host, Shelby Friesen.
All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of Mental Millennials. Today I've got Finn Dover with us here, and he's got quite the background of, he's got martial arts, mushrooms, and just general holistic living and how to live healthily. And I'll let him do a little intro of himself and we'll get going here.
Awesome. Thank you. I appreciate it, mate. Yeah, like you said, my name's Finn. It's spelled with about 5 extra letters that don't need to be in there. And I'm super into both of those things. I'm 26 years old. I came to Canada originally from England. I came to Canada 2016 in September. So bang on 4 years now. So yeah, I've been here a little while. I really enjoy it. And yeah, it's a gorgeous place.
Well, we're happy to have you here.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate that.
Well, to get going, do you want to start with going into your childhood and doing some of that, like your upbringing?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
I mean,
Start with some stuff from the past.
absolutely. And I think it's fairly colorful, as I mean, tons of people have experienced, right? Everyone has different upbringings. For me, it was certainly different, and I never really reflected on it until I became a bit older. Because when you're younger, I mean, it's your world, right? You don't really have anything else to compare it to. And my family kind of moved around quite a bit. So I never spent a ton of time at other people's houses. I didn't have a lot to compare my benchmark to. So it was interesting. And now that I've got older, I've met a few more people. I sort of established a friendship group. I realized this wasn't normal. This isn't really how it goes. But to get into it a little bit, so my mum and my dad, they were never married. So they had me and my little sister, and they separated when I was quite young. Before the separation, it was always fights, screaming at each other every night. I remember we'd be on a bunk bed, and I'd always ask my little sister, because I was too scared to go out, and she was the favorite. So I'd always ask her when I was like 6, she was like 4. And I'd ask her to go out and ask them to stop screaming, because I know I'd get told off if I did it. But see, my sister's a lot cuter than me. So I used to send her out and do that. And then eventually when they separated, I think I was around 7 years old. And I mean, it wasn't a great separation for many different reasons. But my mum turned a lot to booze, and that problem never sort of got better. And as with any sort of alcoholism, it starts as a small thing. And then eventually it becomes more regular. And we moved around a lot too. I mean, even when my mum and my dad were together, I grew up in London. We moved to West Sussex, another county in England. And then when they separated, my mum jetted us off to Spain, which was a huge upheaval in everything that I knew at 7 years old, right? I mean, going through school, you're about to get into secondary school, and then boom, you switch everything over. And that was a huge adjustment for me. I started going to school in Spain, Spanish school, not an English speaking school. Very tough adjustment. I mean, as a kid, you can't really see the positives in it. You're being ripped away from your friends and everything that you know. You're not seeing it as like, oh my God, this is going to serve me really well. I get to speak a different language. And you don't think about all that when you're younger. You're just kind of like, this sucks.
Yeah, no, for sure.
So yeah, we went there.
That was sorry, I don't want to interrupt, but was there a reason why they kept moving you guys around? Like, were they moving for jobs, or?
I don't know, to be honest.
It wasn't something obvious.
I've never really spoken to my dad about it, but I guess. I mean, I don't know why he'd move out of London. London's fairly a central city, and that's where a lot of the job opportunities are, similar to any place, right? You'll see as you sort of fan out from Vancouver or fan out from Toronto, the population gets less and less. There's a lot more opportunities at those hubs. And although England's a fraction of the size, London would be the place to be. But I imagine it could have had something to do with finances, stuff like that. I mean, we were never super poor, but we never particularly well off, right? Just in the middle there.
Yeah.
But yeah, honestly, I'm not sure. My mum was always a free spirit, and my dad was too, to be honest.
Okay.
So they kind of just went where the wind took them.
Let's try some
and
new
we were
shit.
along for the ride. Yeah, that's it. We were along for the ride.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, Spain was definitely an adjustment for me. There was a lot of I mean, it's in your formative years, right? And if you're a foreigner in your formative years, I was quite a chubby kid too. Like, you go over there and there's multiple reasons to be picked on, right? So bullying was a thing. I didn't necessarily know how to deal with it because it was all a different language. Huge adjustment. My sister struggled too. I mean, some days she would just pretend that she went to school and then walk off somewhere different.
Mm-hmm.
She just wouldn't turn up. So those were a tough few years. And then eventually my mum's alcoholism got to the point where one day we were in an internet cafe. This was like back in the MSN days. So you went to an internet cafe because we were still running on like Windows 98, which was appalling. I think it was it couldn't even support MSN, so I was very grumpy about that. So we'd always go to the internet cafe. We'd use the more up-to-date computers to get on all that rubbish. Bebo. Did you have Bebo over here?
I don't remember Bebo. MSN was huge though. Was it the same thing?
Yes. No. So Bebo was kind of like a Facebook or a MySpace,
Oh, okay.
like angsty teens. It
We
was
we had in our teens. It was like oh, I can't remember. It was like you basically just built yourself like a landing page about you. It was
yeah.
just like one little thing. I forget there was a name for. Oh, it was Nexopia, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very
Yeah.
similar. Then you could change like the skins on your landing page and stuff.
Yeah, you could buy like the upgraded skins and things.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh God. Thank God I deleted that. But yeah. So we go to the internet cafe anyway. Sorry, I got sidetracked. We go there for that, and something like 11 in the morning, and me and my sister were just using up our 45 minutes on the computers, and my mum was having a coffee outside, and then went out, and we didn't realize that she'd just been pouring this Mickey of whiskey into her coffee, like for the whole 45 minutes. We get back in the car to go home, and she just can't drive. She's veering into the middle of the road. She's almost coming off the other side. And we're on one of the roads in Spain. Thank God it wasn't a highway, but she's veering off into the middle of the road. And eventually, I was 9 at the time. Yeah, I was 9 or 10, and I had to grab the steering wheel and just veer the car off the road. My sister was in the back,
Mm-hmm.
and obviously we were quite shaken up. So me and my sister got out the car, and I called my dad, who I hadn't spoken to in a while. It was quite difficult for him to kind of get over to Spain and stuff like that. He tried to come and visit us once every year or 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I called him, obviously distraught, didn't know what to do, and that was the start of a long custody battle,
Mm-hmm.
which drained a lot. It drained a lot of savings that they'd like obviously been putting into for me and my sister when we grew up. There's none of that left. It was all this big battle of who's going to have the kids, and eventually it turned out obviously that my dad got custody of us, so it was back over to the UK. And I think that lasted a few years. So by the time I got back to the UK and went into school, I was 15, so going into grade 10.
Mm-hmm.
That was an adjustment too, because if you go to school in Spain and like you don't get good enough marks, you just repeat the year.
Oh.
So you'll repeat the year, and obviously I did it maybe 2 or 3 times because I was thrust into a different language, right? I'd never learned it before. So I repeated
Yeah.
the year 2 or 3 times. So it was kind of the equivalent of me going from grade 7 to grade 10. So
Oh,
there
like
was,
'cause you didn't do the in-between grades.
yeah, exactly. So I was pretty good at science, which I enjoyed. I was horrific at English and terrible at maths as well. So that was a big adjustment when I came back to school. But I got my head down, managed to sort of slog it out. It was good.
Mm-hmm.
And then I graduated, and I decided to go to university down south. That's when I moved out of home when I was 18. So in the south of the country, got my student loans, got my maintenance loans. Obviously, they still exist. It's still a lot of money, but yeah, went down there, started university, and things were going well. It was a big change up, but I mean, I've moved around all my life, so it wasn't a huge
Mm-hmm.
issue.
Yeah, you're not
Um,
used to that.
yeah, exactly. So it wasn't too bad, and I found it was a lot easier to gel with people for that, right? And again, I
Mm-hmm.
never really in my youth, I never really attributed that to anything, but it probably was because I was moved around so a lot, right? So I should be grateful for that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then in my first year of university, that's when I started talking to my mum again, because I was very frustrated as a teen. So I went without speaking to her for a year and a half, 2 years, because it didn't make sense in my head how obviously this habit that she had hurt us so much, and why
Mm-hmm.
she didn't just ditch it. It just didn't make sense to me, right? And we'd fall out a lot about it, and to the point where I'd just be like, okay, I'm going to take what you love the most, which is us, or like my sister made her own choice, and they carried on talking, but I said, I'm just not going to talk to you. I just
Mm-hmm.
don't think it's fair. It's hurting me too much. So that was like just before I got to university. So I started speaking to her again in my first year. And then halfway through my first year, she got diagnosed with throat cancer, which
Mm-hmm.
was quite a big blow. So yeah, that was a worry. And she was going through treatment. I remember I'd drive her car and I'd drive her to the hospital sometimes, and it was quite intense. It was
Mm-hmm.
different, right? And that's when it started sort of definitely my mental health. I got a lot more anxious about things, and like you compound that with being at university, trying to meet new people, going out and drinking all the time.
Mm-hmm.
You'd end up doing some silly things, and there's a difference between going out and drinking and having fun, and then going out and drinking and not remembering 70% of the nights that you do, right? It's stupid.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
And
yeah.
like while people do it, people do go get blackout sometimes, but I definitely took it to another level, and it was a bit too much.
Mm-hmm.
Bit too much. And you could tell, because now looking back on it, I'd be drinking and like I'd always be the crier, and then they were like, why is Finn always crying when he gets drunk? And I think it was a lot of this pent up emotion, right, of everything that was going on. And
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
yeah, it was pretty intense. So then first year finished, we went into second year, and it looked like
Sorry,
uh,
what were you going to university for?
nutrition. So I
Oh,
got
okay.
my bachelor of sciences in nutrition.
Oh, cool. That's awesome.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. I'll have to circle back and
Yeah, yeah.
go back and after I finish this relationship with my mum. But basically, I went into second year. Things looked good. Like she was responding to the treatment well. The cancer was almost gone.
What was she
Uh,
doing for treatment? Sorry.
it was chemotherapy.
Okay, it was
So
chemo.
just your traditional allopathic treatment. That's another thing. So in the UK, a lot of medicine, it's mainly allopathic. You don't have naturopathic doctors. You don't really see a lot of these alternative therapies. So
Mm-hmm.
that was a
So,
really cool learning curve for me when I came here.
mm-hmm.
But I'll get into that a bit later. She was responding well to the chemo. It was pretty much done. And then I remember we were home I was home for the Christmas break. My sister was still at home, obviously, with my dad. And he came in one day with a real somber look on his face, and he just told, oh God, it's quite intense. He told my sister that my mum had passed away, like the night before. Yeah,
Holy.
yeah, it was intense, man. Even when I'm saying it to you now, you can hear my voice cracking a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
It's like someone like smashes you in the chest with a sledgehammer. It was
Mm-hmm.
really intense. And my sister just ran out the room crying. I was just sat down. I couldn't really believe what happened, right? I was like, this
It
is
almost doesn't seem real at
crazy.
first.
Oh my God. I mean, it's a very different feeling when it kind of blindsides you there, because you've been going through all that stress, and then it eases up. And then it's just like you're on a huge roller coaster ride that just drops you down, and then the drop doesn't stop. So you just have to like sit down and figure stuff out. But it was
Mm-hmm.
it was intense. And yeah, that was when like stuff started picking up for me on the mental health side. Like I didn't really know what to do. Like it
Mm-hmm.
started morphing into different sort of things, like too much partying, closing myself off from people, snapping at people. I remember one day I went to one of my anatomy and physiology lectures, and I was in there, and all of a sudden I got super hot and like broke out in cold sweats. I started shaking. My legs felt super light. So I kind of walked out, stumbled to the bathroom and just sat down. I was like, oh my God, what's happening? I thought I was going to throw up. And then it just kind of subsided. And I remember like, that was my first anxiety attack. I didn't know what it was at the time. I went to the doctor and I was like, what the hell's wrong with me? And he was like, sounds like you had an anxiety attack. I was like, I've never dealt with that before.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a lot. It was a very long healing process from that. And I didn't think I could. I remember I came home again for a couple of weeks and I spoke to one of my friends and I was like, I don't think I can finish my degree. Like, I don't know what I'm doing.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember I was sat on the sofa at the house party and it was one of those drunken hearts. And I remember my friend saying, no, you've got to do it. You're like 2.5 years in. Why wouldn't you finish? And that was a big sort of kick for me because I was like, I remember I just felt like I had to be at home for my sister and look after her. But she was saying the same thing. She was like, you've done this for 2.5 years. Why don't you finish?
Mm-hmm.
So I finished my degree in the end. And then after I finished that, I was like, I have to do something. I want to go out. I want to see the world. So I worked a little bit as a server, saved up a bit of money. And like my mum loves traveling too. Hence why we were here, there and everywhere all the time. So I went around the world and then I touched down in Canada and I was just like, I'm going to stay here for a little while. And here we are. So that's a span from about 18 to 26. But yeah, it was quite intense.
Yeah, man, that's quite the story. It's a lot to share.
Yeah, it was a lot. Sorry, I was talking for a very long time there.
No, it's all good, man. Yeah, that's great.
It was a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But no, it was good. And that's what I mean. I think anyone that you see on the street, you don't really know their story. You don't know what they've been through, right? So it's good to sort of treat everyone with kindness and respect. You really don't know what they're going through.
No.
And I've only started learning to do that because I've always been in my little bubble, like I said. And I'm always of the mentality that like, oh, well, if I can do stuff, then other people can do it as well. When really that's not the case. Like when I was young and flipping out at people and drinking, they were probably like, well, why the hell is he doing that? That's a weird thing to do. Right. And I never really thought about it like that. So now when I see someone who acts like that or who acts out of turn in a way that you wouldn't normally think, it's like, well, what's going on behind there,
Mm-hmm.
Because I know people, I've got a friend who's had a past 10 times worse than that. Lost
Mm-hmm.
both his parents very young, one of them to suicide. And I remember I actually met him in Australia when I was traveling and I was like, holy fuck, like that's intense. Like I thought I had it bad, right? And then there's someone who's just had it 10 times worse than me.
Mm-hmm.
So it's it's intense. It's a lot, but I believe these experiences shape you, right? And they can either shape you for the worst or for the better, but ultimately it's your reaction to everything. So yeah, that was my long, colorful journey with mental health. And there are a lot of things that helped me along the way for sure.
Yeah, that's I mean, we honestly have a very similar past. Like you telling the story too, I'm like, man, this sounds a lot like it hits a lot for me too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Similar sort of thing for you, or?
Yeah, similar thing with like back and forth in parents, mother into the alcohol, and not talking to her for a very long time. Just like basically the same thing, minus passing away. That hasn't happened yet. So I've been very fortunate, but yeah.
Yeah, it's intense, right? And all those smaller things, like you mentioned, like that's when you think it's normal, like going back and forth between two parents or not speaking to either one of them for extended periods of time, not seeing my dad for a couple of years here, not speaking to my mum for 1.5 years here, arguing over Christmas and stuff like that. It's very different. And so I actually met my girlfriend in Thailand on the first leg of my trip. And she's from here. She actually lives in Whistler.
Oh yeah.
And oh, she's amazing. And I came here, started living with her, and then obviously I wouldn't go home every Christmas, so I'd spend Christmas at her place, and it was like everyone sat around the dinner table, like everyone, like sisters, mom, dad, sometimes they'd have family friends, and I was like, this is so strange, but I kind of like it. It's really interesting, right? I was like, wow, that was another big sort of turning point for me, because I was like, this is super different. But
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, you really don't start to notice until you start like partaking in other people's lives at like an older age. I
mm-hmm.
think because even when I was younger, I don't know how much I noticed. Like you didn't really spend that much time as a younger kid with other families, like I didn't at least. But yeah, as you get older and start meeting new people and really like taking part in other people's lives, I think you start to see a lot of differences, obviously.
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah, and it's cool. I think it's good to see. It's good to know where you come from, and like it's an eye opener. Well, I don't know about for you, but for me, it was a huge eye opener.
Hmm.
It's like,
Yeah.
oh, I kind of see why it's interesting when you realize you can come from a place of, instead of having it attached to emotion or having your blinkers on, you can
Hmm.
come to another place and compare it, and you're like, this is very interesting. I wonder if this influenced my behavior in the past, which is good. Like I should never say. I think it's a fine line between blaming certain behaviors on your past and then like acknowledging them and being like, oh, okay, maybe I was behaving this way because of it. I don't have to behave that way anymore,
Yeah,
right?
there's a difference between using it as an excuse and just like being aware of it and moving forward.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's really key here. And to be honest, with a lot of mental issues, I think it's realizing why you're behaving a certain way or what's affecting you in a certain way, and then trying to move past it. And
Hmm.
there's a lot of things that can help with that. I mean, but essentially it has to come from you first. That
Hmm.
realization has to come, and that realization that you have the power to change that. You
Hmm.
can't change what happened, but you can change your reaction to it, you know?
Hmm. Yeah, exactly.
And that's a super powerful feeling.
Hmm. You can do it.
Yeah. But yeah, there was certainly a lot of things that helped me along the way. So I mean, we mentioned martial arts briefly
Hmm.
in the intro. Martial arts was huge for me, for more reasons than one. So when I was younger, going back to when we were in Spain, I was never really an athletic kid. I was always picked last for sports teams, very anxious about certain things. So I never really liked in partaking in team sports. In England, football or soccer is very big, right? And I'm just useless at it. I'm so bad. I'm the worst Englishman to talk to about soccer. I don't follow teams. I'm really shit at it, like very shit. And yeah, and it all stemmed from all this anxiety of like being picked last for sports teams. I didn't like people laughing at me. I didn't like exposing myself or like looking kind of weak or not being good at something. So I just wouldn't do it. And it
Hmm.
wouldn't just be soccer, it would be anything. So I would much rather just close myself in my room, play video games, and not partake in any of those sorts of things. So
Hmm.
growing up, obviously, when you don't exercise a lot and that's your main pastime, you end up carrying a bit of extra weight. I think by the time I was 12, I was considered like morbidly obese, severely overweight in the UK. So it was quite a lot. And I remember like I didn't want to do any of these things. But the games I played were like beat 'em up games like Tekken. Did you ever play Tekken?
I know the game, but I've never played it.
That game's so good. I used to play a lot of Tekken. Um, and I used to love all the old martial arts films. So I loved The Matrix, I loved Rocky, I loved all of these action films. And I remember one day my mom was like, "Oh, you should do something like that. You should take up like Taekwondo or karate." And I was like, "Absolutely not. I'm not doing that." And then one day,
Absolutely not.
yeah,
I just keep watching it.
yeah, and then one day my mum decided that that was it. She didn't want that sort of life for her kid. And I remember she just hauled me into the car kicking and screaming, dropped me off at this karate dojo in Spain, and threw me through the doors and was like, "Don't let him out. I'm going to pick him up in an hour." And I was distraught. I was like, "I can't believe she's doing this." But I actually really enjoyed it. I sat down for the first 10 minutes in a sulk, and then the professor was just having none of it. And he was like, "You're going to join in out of respect." and I joined in, and I loved it. I was
Mm-hmm.
hooked. It was incredible. It was like the first time I'd ever done something where like I was completely zoned in, because I had to be. I was
Mm-hmm.
working all these things I'd never worked before. I was getting this endorphin high. I was learning how to move my body in structured movements, and it was incredible. And I was
Mm-hmm.
like, and I'd seen like, have you watched The Matrix? You know, when he
I've
goes
watched it,
to
but
his
it's been a
kimono?
long time.
It's pretty badass. He puts on his kimono, and then he's like got his belt on, and he learns kung fu. And I'm like, this is cool shit. So when I put on the kimono, I was like, this is really cool, and I really enjoyed it. So I kept doing that in Spain up until probably around 14. And then I came back to England, did some more karate for a bit, and then that slowly evolved into the more aggressive martial arts. So I did a bit of point fighting, kickboxing, competed a little bit when I was younger, and then
Mm-hmm.
that evolved into full contact kickboxing. Stopped a little bit throughout university because money was quite tight. And then I came back to it when I was traveling, actually. I did some Muay Thai in Thailand for 2 months.
Mm-hmm.
And now I train here at a gym called Universal MMA just in North Vancouver. And I took up Jiu-Jitsu, which is one of the most humbling things ever. I mean, the first time I tried it, I think he was a 15-year-old who I had like 30 pounds on, and he submitted me like maybe 3 or 4 times in 5 minutes. What on earth is going on? And I thought I was a bit of hot shit, right? I've been training
Yeah.
striking for a little while. And yeah, I couldn't believe it. So big into jiu-jitsu right now. That's the one I'm doing a bit more of, just because, I mean, the impact on the head isn't a great thing to have. And with work and everything like that, it's
Mm-hmm.
a bit stressful. So I'm doing a bit more jiu-jitsu now, trying to save the ears. They're not looking too bad. But yeah, martial arts was huge for me. And in terms of how it shaped me, it's been incredible. I mean, from when I was younger to dropping a bunch of weight, like you can sort of see now, I'm not an unhealthy weight by any means.
No.
But I really enjoy it. I really enjoy it, and you're constantly trying to better yourself, and it's something where there's so much to learn. It's not kind of like I don't want to say more simple, because every sport's difficult, but let's say you do baseball, right? You have to work on your swing and your sprint and your
Mm-hmm.
throw. Those are 3 things, right, that you have to work on. When you're doing multiple disciplines of martial arts or MMA, you have to work on wrestling, kickboxing, you could do karate, jiu-jitsu, and there's so many different moves based on that. And then when you dive into it even deeper, there's so many ways you can do those moves based on your body type. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm 6'5" and quite lean. If I try and do something that someone who's, let's say, 5'8" and same weight as me, I'm not going to be as successful, right? And
Mm-hmm.
there's very different ways you can manipulate your body, and it's just fantastic to always be learning, but also always be competing against yourself. That's
Mm-hmm.
the thing I really like about martial arts, because you constantly have to get better, and it's frustrating. It's really annoying, especially when someone beats you. Like, you get so frustrated deep down, and to me, it's like the ultimate test of your ego, because if someone beats you in combat, that's it. Let's be honest, like, that's it.
Mm-hmm.
Especially in jiu-jitsu. Like, jiu-jitsu is a funny thing, because you are submitting. You're saying, okay, you got me, that's it. And I
Mm-hmm.
mean, anyone who listens to like the Joe Rogan podcast and all of that, they'll hear them say the same thing, but it's really true. And when you do it, it's pretty gutting to you realize that you're the one who made it finish, because you're the one who's like, okay, I want this to stop. And that's really frustrating, but it kind of fuels you forward, and you're like, okay, I don't want that to happen again. And there's a
Mm-hmm.
lot of those lessons that you can carry on through life, right? You
Mm-hmm.
have this traumatic event that happens, you practice a way to react to it so that it doesn't happen again.
Yeah.
And you can carry that on all the way through. And if there's one thing I'd say everyone should try, it's martial arts. There's one out there for everyone. There's so many different ones. You can be 80 years old and arthritic and take up Tai Chi. There's so many different things that you can
Mm-hmm.
do. But if I had a bit of advice for everyone, it's like, go try martial arts. It's so much fun. It's super frustrating and annoying, but it's a lot of fun for the same reasons that make it frustrating and annoying.
Yeah, man, that sounds awesome. And like, how much time do you spend training, like usually now, like a few days a week, or
6 days a week. I
and
do
for
6 days a week, and then
like
I'll
it?
probably do minimum 2 hours a day.
Oh, that's quite a bit then.
Yeah, it's a lot. I'm addicted, man. It's addictive. It's addictive behavior, but I really do enjoy it. And I'm not addicted to the point of like, I'll injure my body and keep going. Like I do have some nagging ones, but that was more from when I was trying to get fights and all of them got cancelled. Super frustrating. It's very hard to get fights in Canada. Well, now with COVID, I mean, nothing's happening, but I'm addicted in a way because I really like improving myself, not only physically, but mentally too. And that's a really important thing for me. And I want to keep doing that until I'm not able to anymore.
And right now, like, do you train in a facility or do you do your own stuff at home too? Like, is there...
In a facility mostly. I like, me and my coach have a really good relationship, so I have a key to the gym. So sometimes I'll go down there and just hit the bag in the morning, but most of the time it's just going there for the classes. They've got good protocols in place now with the social distancing and everything, and making sure that you're partnering up with the same person each time you go, which again gets kind of limiting, but it's what you have to do right now.
Yeah. Don't really have a choice.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's awesome. You can still do it though.
Yeah, it is. I mean, when this whole COVID thing hit, actually, that was actually a huge shift for me too, as I imagine it was for a lot of people. I mean, when COVID hit, everyone's sort of routines got turned upside down. Work got a lot more quiet for me. We ran out of a lot of stuff at work. So I was doing very short days, and then it's like, you're locked inside. You can't go anywhere. The gym was shut for a month, and it's like, what do I do? And it's kind of weird because then like, your home then becomes your eating space, your relaxing space, your working space, your gym. And it's just too much. I mean, I don't know about you, but man, Vancouver rent's high. I don't live in a big apartment. So it can get it can get suffocating, right? And you're just like, oh God, I need to get out somewhere. And you don't realize, like, especially, so I spend so much time at the gym, like minimum 12 hours a week. That's my social time. I don't really go out. I'm not fussed that they've got all these restrictions on bars and stuff like that. A lot of my social time is just catching up with the guys before and after class. But when that finished and I didn't have a lot going on, I was like, what did I do again? I was like losing sense of purpose. But then it kind of turned into a positive in the end because I got to read a lot more. I saw something on your guys' Instagram, actually. You were doing a book giveaway. One of the books on there, Biology of Belief, I read during the whole break. That was fantastic.
Yeah, it's an awesome book.
Really good book. Especially if you're like nerdy and into the science too. Big fan. Big fan.
No, that one's good. It's pretty applicable to anything too, just the whole belief factor of like how much of a role it plays.
For sure. And I think it's really good. It's a very good book for like skeptics as well that are so interested in like the white papers and all of that. Like I was, like, doing a Bachelor of Sciences, that was the only research I was pushed to consider, was that scientific evidence. But when you have someone that can break down that link between something that isn't well understood yet and then the effects of it on the body, super cool. Especially the measurable changes on it. I was pretty stoked on that book.
Yeah, it's wild how now they can actually like record that and give you data behind it too, pretty much.
Yeah, man. I mean,
you can't really argue with it.
Pretty crazy. And like, trying not to sound like a geriatric already. I'm only like 26, but do you remember when, like, how old are you? Do you mind me asking?
I'm 27, so somewhere.
27. So pretty much same age, right? So when we were younger, the craziest thing to me now looking back on it is how quick mobile phones have developed. I remember, I think it was just before we went to Spain, so I was 8 or 9 years old, and my mum had one of those tiny little the Motorola flip phones.
Oh, the Razor?
No, even
before the Razor.
The really small one with the tiny little detachable antenna. It was like Motorola's first like small flip phone. And it looks like one of those toy phones that you get now that have like candy in them from a cheap shop. But like, it was so small because they'd just gone from these big old brick phones, and they were like, okay, how do we make the phone so small? So they went tiny. And I was just like, wow, that was not long ago. When you think about it, like 14 years ago, to the point where like, okay, I'm British, so big fan of Harry Potter, right? You guys probably enjoy it too. But I remember like when the film came out and you were like, oh my God, moving pictures in newspapers. If you pick up your phone now, you've essentially got that.
Mm-hmm.
You've essentially got it, which before we were regarding as magic, or like gifts. Someone sends you a gift and it starts moving. Like your brain doesn't make that connection. But not very long ago, we thought that was magic, right? We were like, oh my God, imagine if newspapers actually moved. But now it's like technology's come so quickly in the span of 14 years that it's like, oh no, this is actually a reality now. They're getting rid of cameras because your phone can do it all. Someone took a photo at the long weekend on their like, I think it was iPhone 11 or something.
Yeah, the new fancy ones.
Oh my God, I looked at it, I was like, Jesus Christ. Picks up every little detail on your face. I was like, damn, I am looking old now. Yeah, it's pretty wild how quick technology's come forward, right? And like,
it's huge.
Now that you're seeing that on the medical side of things, I think it's really cool.
Yeah, no, it's a killer book. Like one of my highly recommendeds.
You talking biology of belief or the Harry Potter saga? Because the Harry Potter saga is pretty good too.
I haven't read that in forever. My parents used to read that to me when I was young.
Yeah, well, do you know what we had? We had, do you know who Stephen Fry is?
No.
Stephen Fry. He's incredible guy in the UK, talk show host, professor in English, but he used to release audio CDs. So we used to listen to those in the car, and that was amazing.
Like though he released them of Harry Potter.
Yeah.
Oh, he would just read it out loud and record it
out loud on a CD. The best. Yeah, it was so good.
Oh, that's awesome.
So that was before audiobooks. Yeah, man, it's pretty crazy.
Sweet. Well, with the martial arts stuff too, like you were saying, you kind of like that's your social thing that you talk with them there before and after. Like, what are the people? How like is it a diverse group of people, or does it go by like age group, or are you kind of like connecting with all ages and male and female when you're there?
Yeah, it's super diverse. It's super diverse. That's a really good question, actually. There are very different ages. There are some really young guys, like 17, 18, 21, and then you've got people who come in. I mean, we had a guy in last night who's 54.
Oh yeah.
Right? So like super diverse. And again, it will depend, right? I think
and you guys like kind of all connect and talk together too.
For sure.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, I really like it. And I mean, it's kind of forcing you into this environment. It's kind of like an office, right? Where you get a bunch of people together that wouldn't normally mix. But instead of it being for super extended periods of time, it's just an hour or a couple of hours. Yeah. And it's also doing an activity which really exposes you. And like, it really exposes you. It exposes your mental weakness, your physical weakness. And I mean, it's not for the faint-hearted. We're very lucky that we've got a coach, one of the best coaches, in fact, the best coach I've ever trained under. I think he's one of the best in the world. But he's very good at sort of controlling that group and making sure that everyone treats each other with respect. You know, it's a very intense thing. You get a young guy who gets beaten and he's like flipping out and he's really annoyed. I mean, I've been there. I get frustrated when I get beaten. And you get all these people mixing together, but it's such a good environment because it exposes you to these people. It exposes your weakness in front of them, and you end up sharing this bond. And the language of martial arts or the language of fighting is something that translates across different age groups, across different body types. It's very universal. Like once you learn it, it's a very universal language that you speak. So it's really cool. It's really cool. And in terms of breakdown of men and women, there's definitely more guys than girls right now. But more girls are getting into it, which I really like. And I really do credit that to, like, honestly, the way the UFC like portray their athletes. I think it's one of the best sports in the world for female athletes right now. They're very well represented in sport. But no, I think it's super cool. Everyone should do it, like I say. Absolutely everyone.
I'll have to try it again one day.
Yeah. Oh my God. Well, have you tried any martial arts before?
Like when I was younger, I was in Taekwondo.
Nice. That was one I always wish I did. I see Taekwondo guys kicking now, and I'm like, damn, I've done that one.
Wow, that was like so long ago. I don't even really remember what the hell we did or what
Yeah,
belt or anything that I've got near. But yeah,
it's
I
good, man. As I would highly recommend even jiu-jitsu. Like jiu-jitsu is pretty big right now, so you've got a lot of people training it.
hmm
Fun, a lot of fun.
yeah, I knew a guy in high school who did a lot of that. He loved it.
Mm.
Yeah.
It's incredible, man, and it's a really nice thing to do. And again, like I say, you can be social with it,
hmm
which is quite fun. But I was gonna say something there. It was talking about mixing. I've lost my train of thought. I'll come back to it if I think about it.
Okay. Um, do you want to go back to the nutrition kind of school and how that, well, I'm assuming that's what brought you into like the realm of mushrooms and what you've got going on now.
Yeah, definitely. It
Or
really
like
did.
or like why did you choose to go to nutrition school out of like, was there a reason?
It's a very good question. There's a long sort of process, but I'll try and trim it down because I know I'm a bit of a talker. So I kind of around that time, obviously, I told you I was very overweight, and then I started going to karate, exercising a bit more, and then I was like, okay, well now I better lose the weight. So I started trying to figure out on my own all the things to do to lose the weight, and that actually kind of rebounded. So the pendulum swung a bit too far the other way. So I'd end up exercising a whole bunch and then getting into really bad eating habits. So I'm talking like anorexia level. Like you go on the forums and like I'd eat a tiny bit for breakfast, leave the rest of it. My mom would be like, "What's up?" And then I'd chew gum all day until I had to come home and then eat dinner. So
Mm,
like I wouldn't eat at school, eat dinner, try and leave a bit, repeat that cycle. And I ended up losing a whole bunch of weight, getting very weak. And then, so when I came back to the UK, this was all while I was in Spain. I came back to the UK and like saw these men's health magazines and stuff like that. And I was like, oh my God, look at this guy on the front. He's so jacked. This is where all my answers are going to be. So I went into the men's health magazine and it was just more nonsense. I hate to say it. They can be useful. They can be useful if you know what you're doing. If you have a nutrition degree, and you read it and then you can go and like validate the claims, they can be useful. For anyone else who just takes everything at face value in there, it's nonsense. I hate to think how much money I wasted on supplements when I was younger. Hate to think about it. It was probably a lot. So I remember getting to 18 and in my head I'd always wanted to be a paramedic. And then I went through all the interview process and stuff like that and saw a few universities, and I got rejected by my 3 choices, which was actually a blessing in disguise. Because I mean, being a paramedic first responder, that's a tough job.
hmm
That's really tough hours, a lot of stress. And to be honest, I don't know if I could have done it. I believe I could have done anything, but I don't think I would have been happy. And I don't think I necessarily would have been good at it. So when
hmm
that happened, I was exploring other options, and nutrition was one of them. And I was like, fine, I'll nutrition. I've always been interested in it. And I did that. And going through university, I was just like, wow, there's a lot of misinformation out there. There is
hmm
a ton of misinformation. And I mean, all the mental health stuff aside of comparing yourself to other people, especially those people on the front of men's health magazines, all of that stuff aside, there's a ton of misinformation out there that can just impact your physical health. That's
hmm
misinformation. So I remember finishing my degree and I was like, everyone should have the information that I just got in these 3 years. I really think it should be part of the public school system, to be honest.
Oh, 100%.
I think it's crazy that it's not, because once you start fixing that and you learn how to eat properly and how food can be a ton of different things, right? People can use food as a mental crutch. People can use food socially. People can use food for fuel. You learn about all these different facets of food and health, not only mental health, not only physical health, but mental health as well. So that was really eye-opening for me. I'm really glad that I did it. But I ended up coming over here and actually working in a supplement store. And it was a really good supplement store. I honestly thought all supplement stores were the devil. And I was like, no, they're just here to sell you stuff. I kind of thought of them a lot as like a GNC.
hmm
there's a new flavor of the month. We have to sell X amount of this product per month. And this supplement store that I worked at wasn't like that. I remember I went in on my first day, and the CEO was like, it was a startup at the time when I came, and the CEO was like, hey, if you don't believe in a product, we don't want you to sell it to someone. And that really rang true to me. I was like, oh damn. And like there were no like sales targets in the sense of like product for product, we want you to push this month. It was like, no, we want you to force to connect with people and figure out if anything in here can help them. It's pretty cool. And when you start looking at supplements for what they are, supplementary, that is what they are, then you can start actually getting a lot of benefit from them. The problem comes when you rely on supplements just for everything. You know, you've got people who have a protein shake and then a fast-acting carb drink, or one of my least favorite, weight gainers. Those things are fucking terrible. They're so bad for you. Like weight gainers, they're awful. When you start branching into that stuff, it's not good, right? But then you have other things. It's like, oh, well, dial your nutrition in, and then what do you not get daily, right? There's a big problem with magnesium, particularly in North America now. So it's like, maybe have a bit of extra magnesium that'll help you relax a bit at night. Maybe someone can't sleep, so they go for a melatonin. Maybe someone's a bit anxious, so they go for an L-theanine. All of these things that can really help calm you down, that aren't as aggressive as, let's say, an antidepressant or some of the more allopathic things you've got. But yeah, sorry, what was the question initially? Nutrition and why you got into it. Yeah, so it stemmed from all of that. It stemmed from being overweight and getting into it that way. But yeah, now that I was here, so back to my degree, it was a very science-based degree. And again, I was taught to sort of follow the science. And I came over here, and I mentioned it briefly earlier in the podcast, is that was a huge paradigm shift for me. Because I went from this completely evidence-based thing to here you've got things that don't necessarily have the evidence base, but are very huge, like chiropractors, for example. I know a lot of people who've been to chiropractors and they swear by them. And their symptoms, whatever their pain is, it's been healed, right? So who am I to say, oh no, chiropractic practice is nonsense? Who am I to say that? It helps people. You know what I mean? And like naturopathic doctors that focus on like herbs and all of that sort of thing as a way of healing, that to me was completely foreign. I mean, I knew nothing about medicinal mushrooms or ashwagandha or any of those things until I came here. Ayurvedic medicine, and these things are really powerful. So working in that store, I was actually exposed to a lot of other people who had different educational backgrounds. So they go to like the Canadian School of Natural Nutrition, or what's the other big one? The Institute of Holistic Nutrition.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And they do those courses and they learn a whole bunch. And I was around these people every day, and they were teaching me a ton of things. And it was when I was in the store actually that I was acquainted with the products of the company that I work for now, Purica, and they focus more on medicinal mushrooms or natural anti-inflammatories. And when I talk about medicinal mushrooms, I'm not talking about the magic kind that get you high. I'm talking about stuff like lion's mane, reishi, cordyceps, turkey tail, that sort of thing. And I started looking into them. I was like, mushrooms, I don't know, you stir fry them, shiitake, oyster, that sort of thing. And then you start looking into it and you find out that lion's mane is one of the most potent stimulators of nerve growth factor that you can get from your diet. And if you look at cordyceps, there's cordyceps that Purica produces can increase ATP by around 30%. It's a huge amount. And then you've got other things like reishi that's really good for reducing cortisol. You've got turkey tail that's been used in Japan to actually help combat breast cancer. All of these really powerful things. So I was hooked. I was blown away by the company. Before I'd even met anyone from Purica, I was taking their supplements because I got a good discount on them when I bought them at the store. And the biggest ones for me were like cordyceps and lion's mane. Wow. For like jiu-jitsu, anything aerobic, like anything where you're pushing yourself physically, cordyceps is like a cheat code, man. Honestly, you just don't get tired like you used to. It's
Mm.
incredible. And I've come off it a couple of times because I'm like, no, it's just in my head. But you come off it and you're like, you notice that drop. You just can't go as long as you could before. And then I take lion's mane too, and I've noticed like subtle changes in memory and being able to like focus for long periods of time when I don't take it. But that one's a bit more like behind the scenes sort of action. But again, like for
Mm-hmm.
these sort of powerful things that you can take that are completely natural and don't hurt you, I think they're incredible. Really,
Mm-hmm.
really cool stuff.
And those will be in like pill form.
You can get the pill form or powder form. I always go powder. Like
And
the general rule for anyone, typically if a company offers powder and pills, you're always going to get a better deal with the powder. There's just simply less
yeah.
production cost to it, right? And there's simply less.
So what do you do when you take it then with just the powder? Like you put it in a drink or like?
I throw it in coffee usually, although I like to take
Oh.
breaks from coffee too, because like it's just nice to maintain that caffeine tolerance. But if not, I'm a bit of a savage. I just dry scoop it. It's not, I don't advise people do that, but you can throw it in a smoothie or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
right? You can throw it in a drink. It's fine. Cordyceps honestly doesn't taste like much. Lion's mane is a bit mushroomy. So if people struggle with that, then I'd put it in a drink for sure.
And like compared to like, cause you must know Four Sigmatic then.
Yeah.
Yes.
Awesome. Cool company. I like that company.
So compared to that, like theirs is already mixed with like it's basically like a drink mix.
Yeah.
I just feel like it's super common now. Like I see them everywhere, but I'm
They're
always kind of
good.
like, yeah.
It's a good way to do it, right? And again, it's the same thing I'd advise people. I'll never turn people away from taking mushrooms, but it's like if you like the Four Sigmatic drinks, then start trying it on your own. I think they have more economical sizes of powders too.
Mm-hmm.
That's always going to be a bit better for you in terms
Yeah.
of cost, right? Like you're still going to
Those
get benefit.
those things aren't cheap. They're like a
Yeah.
couple bucks a packet.
Well, yeah, but you've got to think as well, like a lot goes into that. You got to grow the
Mm-hmm.
mushrooms, you got to process them, make sure you extract them. Like
Mm-hmm.
fungi are very sensitive species, right? They can be contaminated easily with molds and stuff. So there's a lot of safety checks and stuff that have to go into it when you're producing that sort of volume, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's understandable, but yeah, I mean, there's always ways around it. Buying your own
Yeah.
mushroom powder, making your own coffee, and then throwing it in there. There's a lot of stuff you can do.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, they're very powerful things. And the reason I like supplementing with them so much is because they really are the truest definition of a supplement. I mean, people aren't going out every day and picking cordyceps off wild caterpillars or grabbing lion's mane and making sure to get all the mycelium out of the ground. First of all, if you did that, you'd decimate lots of land. And second of all, like, where are you going to find it? You can't control for any of these molds and stuff that are in there. So
Mm-hmm.
you're not going to be getting these things in your diet. So it's a good thing to supplement with, right?
Mm-hmm.
Conversely to having a bunch of protein shakes instead of just making your own food, right? And again,
Mm-hmm.
protein shakes, I'm not saying they don't have their value, but you shouldn't rely on them all the time, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's
Yeah,
that
for
sort of
sure.
thing. Whereas like mushrooms, it's that sort of thing you can take pretty much all the time to get the benefit from.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's something you can't really get, at least those mushrooms.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And it's, yeah.
So how long have you been working with the mushroom company?
Since we're working for them, I've been working for them since November. But I mean, they were a prominent brand in the store that I worked at before then.
Right, right.
So yeah, coming up on a year now, but I love them, honestly. Like I love that brand so much. And I just put a feeler out one day. I was like, hey, if you're ever hiring, let me know. And then my rep at the time, who's now my boss, he was like, oh yeah, I'll let you know. And then 2 months down the line, the CEO was taking me out for dinner and an interview. So I was like, this is amazing. I was super stoked.
And are they based in Vancouver?
Duncan, so on the island.
Oh, cool. Yeah, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, super cool company. They're run by two local Duncan boys over there, and it's really, they're great. They're such a good company. And again, it's one of, obviously they care about growth, but it's not like push these products on people. You know,
Mm-hmm.
it's very much like They want you to be passionate about the entire line, which I am. Like, touch wood, there's nothing in there that I don't agree with. All the products they make are fantastic. And then just go out and share that passion with retailers. And if retailers respond to it and they like it and they can work with it, then great. And if they can't, or they don't align with us on a personal aspect too and what the company's about, then maybe it's not a good fit, right? But no, they're such a good company. I just love them. They treat me really well.
That's awesome. I'm
Yeah.
gonna have to try it.
Yeah, definitely. You know what? I can probably hook you up with some stuff too. I'll get your email or your number after this. You let me know what you want to try, and
Okay, cool. Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, man. And there's so many cool things, right? I mean, mushrooms naturally, they have profound effects on the immune system. They can bring it up where it's needed or bring it down too. So they're going through a big growth phase right now. And especially with the current climate that we're in, it's like everyone's now focusing on what they can do to help improve their immunity, right? Which is, I think, is great. I mean, you're getting people that are out cycling on the roads that don't really step out of the house usually. I think that's a wonderful thing. You've got more people joining up at gyms, even though there's a lot more barriers now, like you have to book your sessions and do this and do that. There are a lot more people doing that. And this COVID scare has been kind of a wake-up call for people to be like, okay, I need to focus on my health a bit more. Super important. So
what are they launching new products that'll be like immunity based, or?
I mean, we have quite a few immune-based products, already that are very popular.
Or it's just going through big growth phase because of what's going on. People are buying more of it.
It was going through a growth phase even before, just because people are starting to realize how powerful medicinal mushrooms are. And again, like, you get some of the giants in the industry, like Four Sigmatic, what's the other guy? Host Defense. Paul Stamets did a couple of Joe Rogan experiences, right? And people start talking about them, and I think that really helped with the growth of it. Now, again, with more people focusing on immunity and what they can do for natural health, for their health, like turning towards those supplements, it's become pretty cool. And even before then, man, like, there's a lot of branching into the other side of things, like the magic mushrooms. There are a lot of research studies happening on those before COVID hit. Like, now COVID hit, a lot of the research dollars are being pulled away from that, like psilocybin as treatment, and now they're going towards sort of finding a vaccine for COVID, right? But that's a really cool thing too. And there was a lot of talk even before then, like doing microdosing or stacking like psilocybin with lion's mane or psilocybin with reishi and stuff like that to really gain profound neurological benefits, which I find pretty cool.
There's a lot of stuff around that now.
Ton of cool stuff. And I mean, if you ever try that sort of thing, if you ever try like a psychedelic experience with magic mushrooms, you'll realize how powerful they are. Like, they can be really intense. I remember my first experience, it happened, and I was like, wow, this is a lot. It was quite funny. I remember when I first did it, I had it, and you know, like when you have an argument with someone, and then like you're thinking about it for ages, and you're like, what could I have said to win that argument? What could I have said? And then you're in the shower, and you're like, damn, I should have said this. I should have said this. I was doing mushrooms at a beach in Tofino with like a couple of my best friends, and we had our first experience together. And then we all went to bed, and I was in the tent, and I was thinking back to all these old fights I had, and I was like, how could I have like stopped that, you know? Like, how could I have gone back and just been like, why the hell are we arguing about this? You know what I mean? And I remember I messaged my dad, because there's a bit of a time difference in the UK, so it would have been just when he was waking up. And I was like, hey, I want to call you tomorrow when I wake up, let's say 8 p.m. your time. And I remember chatting to him, because we had a big fight when we were younger, and it was over the stupidest shit, man. It was like, we almost came to blows over me not tidying my room, and then I had a bit of a hissy fit and like left the house for 2 weeks. But that was a big thing for us. It's like, you shouldn't really come to blows with your own son, right? And it was like, there was a lot of resentment there, and I was like, I just called him up. I was like, damn, I'm really sorry. I should have just fucking tidied the room. Like, like it's your house. I understand it's my room, but it's your house. And he was like, yeah, I probably shouldn't have got as angry at you. And it's nice, right? Like you have those healing experiences. And when, so as I was looking into a bit of the research behind psilocybin and why it works, and from what I understand, and I could be wrong, and if anyone listening to this knows better, then great. But from what I understand, it stops certain connections between two parts of the brain firing simultaneously. So it stops. What would be the best way to illustrate it? So let's say like you have a traumatic experience, and the bit that registered that is somewhere in your brain, right? There'll be a totally different part of your brain that fires alongside when you think about that experience.
Mm-hmm.
That's your perception of it. So let's say you have a traumatic event, and then you think about the event, and then you're like, oh God, I don't like that. Your heart rate creeps up and that sort of thing. When you're on psilocybin, it stops the connections between those bundles from working. So in a way, it decreases brain activity between those two bundles, which is quite powerful, because then instead of firing, like looking at that experience and getting that negative perception firing, you can look at that experience and then pick a new connection, right? And that's where that neuroplasticity comes in. Neuroplasticity is that ability to be able to form new connections in the brain. So instead of having the traumatic experience fire in that negative perception, you can have that traumatic experience fire, and then you're like, okay, let's build a new connection. And that's why it can be so powerful for, let's say, PTSD or anything like that. So you think about someone with a real traumatic event going into a therapist and like being locked up. They don't want to talk about it. And it takes weeks, months, maybe even years to get through to them.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they have a little dose of something. It doesn't have to be crazy. I think even they're talking about microdoses now. They have a dose of that, and then maybe you cut that time down by half. Maybe it takes weeks or months, right? Like how powerful is that, right? When you combine it with other things, it's not just to say, oh, go take 5 grams of mushrooms, you're going to feel great. Absolutely not. But if you start legalizing it for its right purpose, not as a party drug, not as this thing with a bunch of stigma, and you start allowing professionals to use it, real people who know what they're doing, these therapists, imagine how much you could help people, right? I think it's pretty cool. And I'm excited, hopefully, once, of course, they've tackled this global pandemic, for research to resume in that area.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it'd be interesting to see what happens, like legalizing it and stuff, if that'll happen.
Yeah, I mean, you look at certain places, I don't know if they've legalized it, but they've decriminalized it in certain places in the States, right?
Okay.
I think that's what they say in like Denver and stuff, but who knows, man? I think it's pretty cool. I mean, I was still working at the store that I was working at before, when the whole microdosing started gaining traction, and a lot more people were trying it, and people really enjoyed it. You know, it wasn't a bunch of people just like, fuck yeah, let's go do mushrooms. It was like, no, how can this benefit me? Which is quite cool. And I think it's just that paradigm shift that needs to happen, right? The people in legislation are still thinking about it as that party drug and stuff like that, and something that's not very regulated that can send people loopy. And I'm not saying that there aren't any negative effects. I'm sure there are. If you go and do like a crazy bunch of mushrooms and you don't know what it's going to bring up to your surface, it probably could mess you up, to be honest. But if you learn how to use them properly, they can be very powerful. It's just like anything.
Yeah.
Absolutely anything. Even the martial arts that I'm banging on about. If you're super addicted to it, but then you get early onset arthritis at 28 and you can't move, what's your quality of life going to be like after that? You know, you can abuse anything. So there's definitely that fine balance. But I think they can definitely be a powerful tool.
Yeah, I wonder too if they'd ever sell them, like, you know, how they do with weed now and marijuana stuff, like just the government stores, which, like, I know some people actually just like that because it's, I don't know, like people, and it seems safer, I think, for people to go buy it from a store, like package, instead of like from some random dude in a Ziploc bag.
Yeah, well, exactly, right? And with mushrooms as well, like we were saying before, they're very sensitive. So you might have like a good batch of mushrooms that, yeah, sure, they give you a good high, but then what if those mushrooms have a mold on that you can't identify? Like, you're not a botanist or like a mycologist. You don't know. What if that really messes up your gut, or you get a parasite from it, or they haven't been dried properly? There's no regulation, right? Like that's the problem with it. So I think, yeah, who knows, man? If they legalize them recreationally, maybe I could see it happening in like maybe the next 10 years or so, recreationally. Maybe.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
Well, because someone even told me too, like the stems and the like tops. I don't know what they're actually called, but even those are like contain totally different amounts of like psilocybin and stuff. So depending like which part you're eating and things too. But I don't know.
I had that too. So that can be, and again, that can be quite dangerous and difficult to dose, right? Especially as kids. That's another thing. I applaud what they've done with marijuana here in terms of regulating it, because I think the biggest issue with marijuana is when teenagers get into it. I think that's a big problem. I knew a kid in the UK that really regrets getting into it, but because he just became a recluse. Play video games, and now like we talk to him and he's like, damn, I feel like I missed out on like a good few years of my life with my core friendship group. And like, so you can't dwell on that, but it can be an issue, right? Especially when your brain's not finished developing. Like, it's so sensitive to these sorts of things, like marijuana, mushrooms, the same, anything. Any of these drugs can be very detrimental to the developing brain. So yeah, I think them doing what they did here with the regulations, there's definitely a way to do it, right? There's a way to make it safer. So
yeah, no, yeah, it's definitely good, I think, but I'm not a regular user, so I don't know either. It never really affected me too much.
Yeah, well, everyone's different, right? I come here and I speak to some of my friends back home, and it was really funny actually. So when my best friends came over that time to visit me, I took them into, this was when like the dispensaries weren't fully legal, but they were just everywhere, right? You had marijuana dispensaries everywhere. And like, I took him in there and he thought it was a stick up. He thought like someone was going to jump out and like put him in cuffs or something. So it's still illegal in the UK, right? But
Yeah.
it was the funniest thing. He was so awkward. I remember going, and the lady at the counter was like, "Oh, what do you want? Like indica or sativa?" And he was just like, weed.
Nothing.
Yeah, it was the best thing.
That is funny. I mean, yeah, I've only been into one once, and like it did seem weird. I was like, it's kind of like I'm just in a candy store for weed. They had like,
It's very strange. It's very strange. I went into one that was like, it was like very surreal experience for me. Like I went in and it was like they had they had like the weed in these like plastic cases with magnifying glasses around a nice big wooden table. Everyone was in like aprons and stuff, and I was like, what is this? This is crazy. I couldn't believe it. It's very, very interesting.
yeah, it's like I don't know. It's cool though. Like nice to be able to go in and see it all and not feel weird about it.
Yeah, the stigma's slowly dissolving, but it's different, right? There's a bunch of different things, even by country, all these like little things. Like in the UK, all the booze is sold in grocery stores.
Right.
So you can go to like, our Walmart equivalent is Asda. It's actually owned by Walmart, but you go in and like there's 2 straight aisles of like wine, beer, spirits. And that was like really weird coming here. There's a few different things, like the post-tax price here. That's a bit weird. Like in the UK, it's like the price you see is the price you pay. What else is strange here? Banking. You have to pay for banking.
Oh, everything's free in the UK?
Everything's free. Every bank is free in the UK. They even give you stuff to sign up. I know certain places are starting to do that here, but like, yeah, here it's you don't have to pay monthly for your bank. That was quite.
It's not usually much here. Like I think last time I got $100.
Yeah.
Or something like, yeah. I feel like they give you more for like the telephone company shit. If you sign up, you get a TV or whatever the hell it is.
Yeah.
Or cable and things like that. But
that's that.
Yeah, it's definitely
slow death though, man. I think I don't have it. Do you have it?
Cable?
Yeah.
No, I don't even have a TV in my house right now.
Damn, that's pretty cool.
I usually just watch movies or something on my computer. Like I'll just use Apple
Mm.
TV, and just buy or rent movies on there, but I don't have anything else.
That's what
Yeah.
I think it's going to start going that way, you know? I mean, everything's releasing subscription services. ESPN Plus now, there's sports doing it.
Hmm.
Cable's dying out for sure.
Yeah, I don't know any like parents have it, like, but that's about it that I see, like older generation people, but young people. Well, I guess the sports people are pretty
Yeah,
big for cable, but other than that, I don't think people really care.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Um, are you going to stay in Canada for a while? Do you know?
Yeah, yeah. I do want to stay in Canada for a while. Like my girlfriend and I, we had plans to go on another kind of like world tour at some point.
Mm-hmm.
Just a good few months. We want to see a bunch of places, right? I've never really seen the sense in. I've never seen the sense in like working super hard until you're 50, 60, and then like going on cruises.
Yeah.
I don't understand that. To me, it just doesn't make sense. Or like using the best years of your life to work and then save for like I'm not going to say your worst years. That like there's different stages to life, right? There's definitely not your
Yeah.
best years, but like when I'm old, I want to be like looking at the generations below me now, like maybe grandkids, and spending a lot of time in one place,
Mm-hmm.
like having a lot of family time. That's what I want for myself. I don't want to like have to work a whole bunch and then save up to then try and explore the world when like my back is sore. My back's sore now, but like when like I'm sore and I can't move as well and I can't go out and like enjoy myself a bit. I've never really seen the sense in that. So we definitely want to do a little like a, a big world trip for sure, just to get like experience a few different countries and cultures.
Mm-hmm.
And then yeah, I think come back here. I mean, my girlfriend kind of wants to see what England is like. I'm like, don't go to England. But no, it's
No
like
need to go there.
yeah, yeah. But then sorry, like going back, you just reminded me of something, like going back to the um the mental side of things. I think there was a lot of things in England that sort of triggered me, right? And I don't know if it's like I don't like the place. I love the place. I think it's just there was a lot of hurt and a lot of development there when I didn't really have full command over myself, my emotions, and like was conscious of my actions. So like I think there's still a bit back there where I'm kind of like maybe I should go back and see what it's like. Because I feel like a new person, man. Like even these 4 years in Canada, I owe that a lot to the people that I worked for before, and also just myself for being able to make it somewhere without family and stuff like that. Like going through
Mm-hmm.
that experience. So I think, yeah, I've developed a lot even in the last 4 years. So I would like to go back and see what it's like. But I remember leaving the UK, coming to Canada, and like struggling for a little bit, but then being like, oh my God, it's great here. And I don't know how much I can just attribute that to like a fresh start where no one knows me. Like literally no one knows me, and I don't have to conform to other people's ideas of who I am, or like worry about all this stupid stuff that I did in the past, right? Whereas now
Mm-hmm.
I can look back at those experiences and just laugh and be like, damn, the old me was different, you know?
Yeah, I bet that last 4 years just seems like a whole nother life, especially being
Yeah,
in another country and everything.
for sure. And it really is. And it's been a good 4 years. I mean, I definitely miss my family. I miss my dad. I miss my sister. I've also got an older half brother on my dad's side, but he's like jetted off around to Australia. We're all the same. We like just dispersing,
Mm-hmm.
doing things. But there's definitely like I definitely miss them. It's
Mm-hmm.
difficult, you know. It's nice to have them available and just be able to go see them. But thank God for technology like this.
Yeah, true. It's nice.
Yeah,
Keep connected a little bit at least and see each other's faces.
yeah,
And
exactly.
what's it like for flying right now? Like, can you even go see them if you want to? Or it's
Not
kind of a
really.
hassle.
You can fly, but it's definitely a hassle because like
Mm,
you'll get there. I don't know if you have to quarantine when you're there, but you'll have to quarantine when you're back. And I think it's a bit like if I go back to the UK, I want to go for 2 weeks. I want to see my friends from university, my friends from high school, my family. So there's a lot of people to go see.
Mm-hmm.
And then like when we go, obviously my girlfriend will come and I want to show her around a bit. So by the time you do all that and then you come back, that's like me going up to my boss and being like, hey, can I get a month off? Not
Yeah.
really, a bit unreasonable, right? And like,
So
especially
you
when
do work like physically, like it's your job position isn't remote.
it is remote,
Some of
but
it is.
it makes it a little bit difficult. There's certain aspects that are remote, but because I'm in sales and marketing, it's good to be out and being able to go see accounts, right? And I can
Mm-hmm.
still do that. There's a few like stores that we go into that don't really want to see reps right now, but then there are other stores that are like, oh yeah, we would love to see you and have a chat with you and strategize as to how we can boost sales and stuff. So there's a part of my job, like I'd say at least 70-80% is going out, getting that like face-to-face contact with people and doing that sort of thing. So to get away from that for like a whole month, it's kind of a big ask.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, it's
Yeah,
definitely an in-person demanding job.
exactly, right? So I don't know, we'll see. I think maybe my family can come out here for a bit. My dad's a bit older, so he shouldn't really be traveling, but he's very stubborn, so he'd probably just do it anyway. But yeah, I definitely want to see them. Hopefully we can organize something maybe for the new year or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, it'd be good to bring them out here, man. I mean, I remember I brought him as they came out here, my brother, my dad, my sister, and my brother and I have sort of like reinvented ourselves from the standard like just work, come home, watch TV. Like we're very active now. He's really big into surfing. I'm big into my martial arts, whereas my dad and my sister not so much. My sister smokes a bunch. So we brought them here, and I remember when we brought my dad, and we were like, "Oh, we'll just do a little hike." And he was like, "Yeah, yeah, a little hike," because hikes in the UK we have hills, we don't have mountains. We just have.
Yeah.
So he was like, "Yeah, okay, I can do it." And we took him up the Squamish Sheep,
Oh
and
yeah.
he was in bits, dude. After that first like step climb,
Yeah.
he was in bits. But he's very stubborn. He finished the whole thing. We did 2 peaks, and he
Oh
did the
shit,
whole
that's
thing.
good.
And he got down, and his t-shirt was a different color. He was like, his hair was all over his face, and he was like, I think I need to get back on my bike. I was like, I think you do, Dad. So he needs to come back and redeem himself on the cheap. All 3 peaks when he comes back.
Man, yeah, that's no easy climb, that's for sure.
No, it's difficult, man. I remember coming here and it's like, yeah, I really applaud you guys for all your outdoor activities. You're a very active bunch, but you can see that in the people too, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
you see a ton of people that are overweight, particularly in Vancouver. Everyone's still very stressed because it's a city, but you have those pockets of escape, which is quite nice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love how close the mountains are.
Yeah.
I can't really like every time I'm just not much of a beach person either. So like when I go
Mm.
away and I come back, I'm like, fuck, like I really do like this place.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
incredible. I bought a paddle board recently,
Mm.
and I love that, man. Like being out on the water, I just feel so at home in the water. It just supports you. Like I'm a decent swimmer. Like I just love it. So like I paddle out and then I jump in the water, and you just can't beat it.
Where do you normally go? Like Deep Cove?
I went to Deep Cove. I want to do White Cliff. And when I say I bought a paddleboard, I mean really recently. So like just before the smoke came. So I got out on Deep Cove, loved it, and then the smoke descended. And I've suffered from asthma in the past, so I'm trying to like behave myself.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I want to go to White Cliff too. I want to see some orca, man. I want to have like a GoPro ready and have one of those orca encounters. Like,
Get blown right off your board.
oh, that's my dream. As long as I don't get eaten, I don't really care.
Yeah,
But
that'd be
like, I don't want to be the first case of like documented wild orca attack. I'm not going to
yeah,
go out and seek them, but if I see them, I'll be super stoked. I
yeah,
actually
that'd be
flew them off the
awesome.
sea bus once. That was incredible.
Really?
Yeah, because they're not usually in the harbor, right? But I was going
Mm-hmm.
across, and then the sea bus driver slowed down, made an announcement. We all went to the rear left side of the boat coming from North Van. You just see like the dorsal fins come up and the pods. They're amazing creatures. Super
Yeah,
cool.
that's crazy.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully
But
you
it's
get to
cool. It's
see
cool for
them.
me. We don't have any wildlife in the UK. You don't have to watch out for any wildlife. No wildlife can kill you there. It's just the people you got to be afraid of. But yeah, like there's no bears or anything. I remember when I saw my first bear here, I was like, oh my God, what the hell is going on? Bears, eagles, you guys have it all. There's a lot of cool wildlife here.
Yeah, and I never even really thought about that. I guess
Yeah.
there's a lot of scary shit here for wildlife.
It was funny. I remember my girlfriend telling me, because she grew up in Whistler, she was like, oh yeah, so in our outdoor ed classes, we'd like have modules on how to deal with like encountering a bear. And I was like, what? To me, that's batshit crazy. And also in Australia, so in Australia, like pretty much every animal can kill you there. But like in their outdoor ed classes, they like talk about how you have to lift things in your garden. You have to flip it first, run away in case there's a spider or a poisonous snake under there, then go back and get it. Or like shark safety at beaches. And I'm like, I've lived a sheltered life. I do not have to worry about my environment, you know?
Yeah, it's yeah, Whistler's crazy for the bear stuff. Like a lot of my family lives there, and I lived there for a few years too.
Mm.
And even like this summer, my uncle, like they just go to the park and their dog would like go chase grizzly bears and shit, like at the park. And he's like, man, you can't do that. You're gonna get eaten. But
Yeah.
like they're also like many of them, they're so used to people. Like I remember we used to chase bears through the village. Like we'd be partying and you'd like see one and you'd just start chasing it and it'd be like literally right through the village, middle of the night. I'm like,
That is crazy to me.
probably super dumb to do when you're drunk, but
We've all
yeah.
done silly things when we're drunk, but I can tell you right now, if I was drunk and I saw a bear, I'd run the other way. I'd be like, nope, absolutely not. I'd take a picture and I'd be on my merry way. That's incredible.
Yeah, you just get comfortable with it, I guess, too. But
How long
yeah,
did you live in Whistler for?
just a few years after high school, I'd say like probably 3.
How'd you find it there?
I really like it there. I spent a lot of time in Pemberton. I don't know if you've been
Mm.
there.
I've been there once. I think Joffrey Lakes is in Pemberton. Is
It's
that
like
right?
past it, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Pemby would be like similar, probably the last town you go through.
Mm.
But yeah, it was good. Like I just love all the outdoor stuff up there. I do a lot of mountain biking, so
Nice.
um, I like that. Uh, and similar for me, like Pemberton and Whistler was kind of like that was my kind of fresh start where I just did whatever I wanted to, and nobody really knew me up there.
Mm.
Like sure, friends came up, and it's close enough I can drive home or have people there, but I just like that nobody knew who I was. I just got to go to the store and not have to think I was going to see someone or any of that shit. Just do whatever. So,
It's kind of
um,
liberating, right?
yeah, it's pretty sweet. Like, yeah, I really liked it. And up there too, like when I was in Pemby, like I'd ride my dirt bike to work, like go out the
Mm.
backyard up to the train tracks and just shit like that that you don't get to do in the city.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I loved it up there. It's just expensive and then work. When I had a business down here, it was like similar. Well, it was a fabrication company, so I had to be there in person
Mm.
and run it. It wasn't mobile, so I just couldn't really go up there again. Whereas now I'm starting to get freed up into more of like a mobile only based business where I could spend more time in other places. But we'll see.
That's good, man. That's good. And especially like right now, I mean, look, we're doing this podcast remotely, right? We're each in our own areas. I could have been in England, like you said in the beginning.
Yeah.
Like, I could have been in England, and that's a really cool thing. And
Hmm.
like it follows that sort of narrative of like these are like the best years of your life. Like do stuff, experiment, like do that sort of thing. Work remotely. Like I feel like a lot of us are in such a rush.
Hmm.
There's this big rush, and I'm very guilty for that. I've always been a future planner. I don't spend a lot of money. I'm always thinking about the future, and that's like my biggest struggle is like, well, hold on, like just live a bit, live a little bit. Even like buying this paddleboard, you can't believe. Like I was sat there like looking at the price, and I was like, should I crick it? Should I crick it? No, I should save. And there's like all of these little things when really it's like, well, no, like just enjoy yourself a little bit. There's definitely
Hmm.
a balance, like it makes me laugh when people are like, you could die tomorrow. Well, like, yeah, you could, but you're probably not going to, right? Like, you're probably not going to. So it's like, it's always that fine balance between like living in the present, but also like having those goals, right? Like, where do you want
Hmm.
to be? For me, like, I want to have a family. I want to be able to support them. I don't want to be stressed when I have a family. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And like a lot of that will hinge on how financially stable I am. So I definitely have goals, but at the same time, it's like, don't sacrifice these good years, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. You got to go out there and play a little bit.
Well, so what made you switch? So you say you had a fabrication company before?
Mm-hmm. We built like custom lift kits and things for cars.
Oh,
Well, trucks, not
okay.
cars. But
Yeah.
yeah, I just went through a lot with that company, especially like that's when my mental health and stuff really started to catch up to me.
Mm,
Obviously, you start your own business and you just keep pushing every single day. Um, it gets to be a lot. And I like grew up with a very bad diet, but opposite to you, I never gained a lot of weight. I
mm,
was always very thin. So growing up, my parents and people would say to me as a joke, like, man, if you keep eating like that, you're going to get fat. So I
mm.
always thought, well, if I'm not fat, I'm healthy then. So who gives a shit? I'll eat whatever I want.
Yeah.
And I would eat like cheesecake, milkshakes,
Oh, it's my weakness, bro.
just
Dairy.
Starbucks coffee, and what else do I get from them? I get like a mocha and a muffin every morning, and like basically I ate pure sugar for
Mm,
years, and that just would catch up when I was working. Um,
mm,
the stress, and then that it was a lot of highs and lows, big crashes throughout the day from it. Like I remember at the end, it would get to the point where like I couldn't even mentally think or move. Like I couldn't do anything. I would have to just drive and get something sugary, and I would last like. And you're so dehydrated when you eat that way too. Like just very draining, very weak.
mm, mm.
Um, hit me one day, and I ended up having to take 2 years off of the business, and that's when I started getting into the holistic realm, learning about nutrition. When I saw a natural path,
Mm.
and then I never went to university, but I did a lot of like workshops, like shorter trainings. For me to commit to something for 3 years, I don't know. I can't do it. I'm just well, it's not really the commitment of the time. It's waiting to get in. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, I want to learn about nutrition right now. I don't want to wait fucking 3 years.
Yeah.
So that was the thing for me. So I would go to more private places um, and see people. So I did a nutrition training that was 3 months under a lady actually from Whistler. Have you been to the Green Mustache cafes before?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I
So
you got some of their granola in the cupboard. It's
yeah.
fantastic.
So she owns those, and
Oh,
I
awesome.
trained under her. Her name's Nicolette. Um, so yeah, like I've like met a lot of people, and I've kind of learned a lot of stuff in the holistic realm. And then once I started to see what was going on and what I'd been dealing with, I would just like I felt like it was more important to share that stuff instead of build trucks for people, which like I don't think is bad. I still think trucks are cool, but I just became I just stopped caring about them as much. Like I started that business out of high school, like wanting to be cool and having a big truck, and it just kind of I evolved out of that, I guess, is what happened.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then now just trying different things, because even the podcast, like I started that a year ago,
Mm.
started this a year ago now. So yeah, and now I'm just getting more into like sharing that sort of thing, like putting together little trainings and like courses on what I've learned in food in the past year and giving out the resources and things. Just like just want people to have access to it.
It's important, man, and I think it's a really noble thing you're doing. Because yeah, like now that I finished my BSc and I've come over here and I've learned a bunch of new things. Before I'd almost discredit anyone who didn't have a university degree, but I mean, like, all everything I've learned here came from people who just had incredible experiences. It
Mm-hmm.
really did, right? And like for you to go out, like think about our differences, right? Like nutrition for me, it was kind of like an afterthought after my paramedics thing. Like, yeah, sure, I have the experience. For you, you had that passion and drive right away from that intense experience.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's super valuable, right? And like to be able to make these things accessible, like let's say one of your courses or something, someone who can't afford to do that university tuition, they come by and do that. Imagine how impactful that's going to be on your health. And going
Mm-hmm.
from the diet that you had, which sounds atrocious, I can't even remember what mine was. Like mine was atrocious too when I was super overweight. That's not me being judgy, but to come from there to where you are now, that's impressive.
Mm-hmm.
for
Yeah.
sure. And like, I definitely think it's something that should be shared, and it's empowering too, because people can see where you've been and then where you came to, and that's very empowering. Because
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people who are trapped in that cycle, you didn't even know you were trapped in that cycle. You probably
No.
didn't even know what food did to you. Like you said, you thought, oh, I'm not fat, so I'm healthy. There's so many different aspects to health, right? There's your mental, there's like, it's not just about what your body looks like. And it's the same when it comes to food. Food shouldn't be something that's just fuel. It shouldn't be something that you rely on for emotional support. It can't just be your social thing, right? It's all of those things. And it will be those things at different times. But you have to make sure that one doesn't take over the other at any given point, and that you're using it in the right way for each thing. And I think you've come to terms with that, and that's powerful. And to be
Mm-hmm.
able to share that experience with people, some people who are lost and who are trapped using it for certain different things, I think that's really good. And man, how much better do you feel? I bet you
A
feel
lot
tons better.
better than I've ever remembered before.
Right? Like my idea of heaven, right? I'll be honest with you. I love crappy food. What people would say crappy food. I love it. Like my weakness is ice cream. Man, I'll finish a whole tub. I remember like I finished like I did 3.5 hours at the gym like a few months ago. And I promise you, I only put this tub of ice cream down because of willpower. I almost did 2 liters, bro. I almost did the whole thing after my education, after everything. Like it's a weakness, right? But how crappy do you feel afterwards? And that's not just you beating yourself up, but like how crappy do you feel physically? Your
Mm-hmm.
body can't tolerate that much all in one go. You know
Oh.
what I mean? So
Oh yeah. Yeah.
even like
No.
the breakfast of like a mocha and a muffin, God, that sounds like a nice treat. But like what happens afterwards? You feel terrible. You
Mm-hmm.
feel so bad. Like
It doesn't
everyone.
take long for it to happen either.
Exactly, bro. I remember when I came here, and like I have to say this as well, because I think a lot of people say it, but they don't actually know that it's true. Where people are always saying, "Oh, the bread in Europe is so much better." It is. It is a ton better. Like you eat that stuff over there, and it doesn't put you out. I remember when I came over here, and I was like Tim Hortons. Never tried Tim Hortons before. Not a thing in the UK. I was like, I'll give it a shot. They have all these wild things. So I got a donut and a bagel. Dude, I was like, literally within half an hour, I had to go to sleep. I had to go to sleep. I was like, I got like an everything bagel with cream cheese, and I think it was a Boston cream donut. Like, damn, it was sweet. It was brilliant. It was thoroughly enjoyable. But then, like, half an hour, dude, I literally had to crawl into bed. I had to go to bed. I was just like, this is crazy. And I remember, so when we were living with a bunch of other people, me and my girlfriend. We I used to go to Boston Pizza to watch the fights, because like we didn't have great TV and like wasn't a good atmosphere, so I'd watch the UFC at Boston Pizza. Every time, dude, I was like, maybe it's some topping on the pizza. I'd eat the pizza, acid reflux, stomach hurt, and like I can eat a lot of stuff. Like I'm not really allergic to anything. I'm not gluten sensitive or anything like that. Like every single pizza I tried there, dude, oh, my stomach just didn't agree with me. It's
It's
very different.
Boston Pizza is supposed to be one of the worst places for food quality. It's like everything's frozen there. Like
Really.
every single thing that they serve, it just they order frozen and then heat it. I don't think they make anything like I don't think they ever roll out a pizza dough and put shit on top of it.
That's crazy.
Yeah, I don't know. I've never worked there, but people I knew that worked there when we were younger, like now they always talk about how shitty it is.
That's
But
interesting.
that's
I
what
can see it.
yeah, like that's where I kind of noticed. Have you been to Chopped Leaf before?
No, but I've heard of it. Chopped
Yeah,
leaf.
it's kind of like I don't know, it's supposed to be a healthier kind of like Subway, I guess, similar to like Freshie maybe. It's
Okay,
like
okay,
I don't
okay.
know, they've got like salads and soup and kind of shit,
Yeah.
but it's like in a Subway type of setup, so it's kind of
Uh,
fast food version, but I've gone there like probably 4 or 5 times and it's been in over like the couple years and I'll go. And every time I eat there, like I'll get a salad and some, I don't know, yeah, okay, there's a bit of dairy on it or whatever, but like I can have a glass of milk and my stomach's fine.
hmm.
And I'll eat it. And like halfway through, I'll get the craziest sharp stomach pains. And I'm like, man, and like, I'm like, okay, it's just got to be something. And then I've waited and gone back. I've tried different locations, and it's not like because I really want to eat there. Just sometimes it's convenient, and every single time I've gotten the same thing. And like, I think it's got to be like, I mean, there's something that's in their processed food that's like
Yeah,
triggering it, some sort of chemical. Like, there's no, I can eat any of those ingredients at home and it's fine. But
yeah,
there, so it's kind of, it's crazy to like when your body becomes that like sensitive, you can really like start to feel the shit that's in stuff.
for sure. And I think it happens with age as too. Sad as I am to say that, because I mean, like when I was younger, I didn't have a great diet at all, right? Like I was telling you, but it was like you sort of tolerate it, but you don't know if that's like your normal, right? But
Mm-hmm.
I never really struggled at school or anything. I don't ever remember being overly tired. I remember being useless at like martial arts when I first started, but that was like a physical fitness thing, right? But like, yeah, it's interesting. I think everyone needs to figure out what works for them, right? But if you can learn how to cook, I was very fortunate in the sense that like my mum knew how to cook. My stepmom actually, like, bless her, she taught me how to cook a bunch too. And if you can learn that, that is one of the fundamental life skills. You
Mm-hmm.
need to learn how to cook. You need to learn how to support yourself. And I mean like cook, like not like boil some pasta, throw some sauce in a pan, like cook the sauce. Learn
Mm-hmm.
what oregano tastes like. Oh, you guys say it so weird. I'm trying to like emulate the accent. Sorry. You don't say it weird, it's just different. But like I say oregano and basil. You guys say oregano and basil. Basil sounds so strange to me. But oregano, basil, like you need to learn what these things taste like. Marjoram, all of these things, garlic, onion, you need to know what works together, right? And if people would just follow that rule, like cook for yourself, anything you eat you have to have cooked for yourself, or like had like your partner or whoever cook for you at home, you're going to be in good stead, right?
Mm-hmm.
No one has the time to bake a ton of cheesecakes all the time. We all love it, but you have to be pretty fucking precise to bake a cheesecake and cook,
Yeah.
and it takes a lot of time, right? Whereas you can knock up a delicious, amazing stir fry in half of that time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So
much
like if you,
faster.
right, like you follow this rule of cooking for yourself, you're going to improve your health no matter what. And
Mm-hmm.
then it depends. If you're quite tall, it might become like, well, damn, I need to start actually eating some more. I'm not eating enough because I'm cooking all these meals for myself. But if you get to that point where you know how to cook, you know how to support yourself in that way, that's huge. And I think that should be part of the curriculum too. There should be mandatory cooking classes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, we'll just have to start our own school one day.
Well, I think so, bro. I think so. Listen, so when in my third year at university, me and two of my other course mates, we were involved in an intervention in a poorer area, right? So we go into a poorer area. We partnered with like the local grocery stores for them to sponsor us and support us in the sense of giving us ingredients, and we get all these poorer or lower socioeconomic background families in, and we'd have the kids cooking with the mums, and typically it was single mums, right? So you'd have the kids cooking with the mums, and then we'd line up the shopping list and the price list, and then we'd do all the calculations and see how much it was to feed people for each meal. And they were blown away. They were blown away. They were like, no, the kids are never going to eat it. They're too used to all this other stuff. The kids loved it. The kids loved cooking, bro. They were learning something different. They were all together. They were eating it. They loved eating something that they had created. And then they saw the price of the shopping list and they're like, why hadn't I done this sooner?
Mm-hmm.
Because the knowledge isn't there. It's the same with you, like same with me, same with anyone. Why hadn't I done martial arts sooner? I didn't know. I didn't try it, right? Same thing with you. Why didn't I clean up my diet sooner? I didn't know. If you can bring that knowledge and make it mandatory from the get-go, you can fix a lot of problems. And then what does that translate into? Better economy, people are healthier, spending more, you haven't got all this medical debt. It translates into better grades, performances going up at school, more wealth in general, more spending. It's that cycle up instead of a cycle down, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So I truly believe it. I think it's a good thing to do.
Yeah, I think it's super important, but we'll see. That's the changes hopefully that'll be made in the future here.
Yeah, and I think again, that's a big frustration of mine with COVID is like it's put all this innovation and stuff, particularly in the public sector where it needs to be on hold.
Mm-hmm.
Now people are too even freaked out about going to school, right? And so can't blame them. I'm not a teacher, so I don't have family here, right? The COVID for me, relatively, it's pretty easy,
Mm-hmm.
to be honest. I put a mask on. I don't see my family. I check in on them. They're a whole country away. There's a ton of water between us. For these other people that have kids, worried about homeschooling, but then you have to balance sending them back. Okay, what if they see their grandma or grandpa on the weekend? Like, that's a lot more difficult. That's
Mm-hmm.
a set of circumstances that's a lot tougher.
Yeah, it's going to be a hard decision to make for people.
How have you found it since the lockdown?
Um, I've enjoyed it, I guess, in a sense. I mean, um, I didn't notice a huge difference. I did eat out quite a bit, especially when I
Mm.
get busy. Try to go to better places, but for me, I also meet people quite often. Like if I'm gonna go socialize, a lot of times for me, it's at a like one of my favorite cafes or restaurants. I don't know if you've been to Fort Langley
I
before.
have actually. I'm going there today.
Okay, so that's where I
Yeah.
live.
Oh, you live in Fort Langley?
I'm like 10
Oh,
minutes
I
from
should have.
Fort Langley, but
We could have
yeah,
done this in person. I'm visiting a retailer there. I'm actually going to the Pure
I
Pharmacy.
was gonna ask if you guys sold stuff there because I buy everything there. I know all the girls there.
Yeah. Well, so you know Nicole?
Yeah,
Super cool. So
yeah.
she's who I'm going by to see today. Yeah, they carry a bunch of our stuff, man.
I was gonna ask that, yeah, because I used to go there almost every day for smoothies and juice from their smoothie bar.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so that's like because Fort Langley's where I usually will go to meet people at like Saba or some of the other restaurants.
Yeah.
So that was kind of like obviously a big hit for me. Everything was closed. But other than that, like everything I do is outside. So I would just go mountain biking by myself or beat one of the cams or whatever. So I didn't notice it that crazy. I mean, it was definitely odd. Um, and
Yeah.
like not really seeing people anywhere and whatever else was going on. I also like have a like the suite that I'm in is on my grandpa's house. So that's
Mm.
kind of like I mean, we don't live together, but it's still like we talk and see each other each day. So that can be kind of like I don't know, worrisome in a sense. But
Yeah.
he's kind of like similar to your dad, where you were saying stubborn and still does shit. Like he never skipped a beat. Went to the grocery store. His girlfriend lives in North Van, so every weekend
Mm.
he goes to North Van to see her, and like they still went out and did all their normal shit. So,
I
uh,
love that grit. I love it.
yeah,
I love that. I love how people are freaking out. You really see people changing in the pandemic, right? Or you see like what people are made of. Because you see a bunch of people, and like even in our age group, that are really freaking out. They're like, "COVID is too much. COVID is too much." And then you see people, the older generations, that's like, "We've been through worse." Like
yeah,
they've had all these like different traumas throughout. Like it's like, I mean, thank God we're not in a war or anything like that. We're all freaking out, and there's people getting on their high horses about masks and all of this. And then you get old people like your grandpa or my dad, and they're just like, I've been through worse. And like, they just don't let it affect their life, right? They're not prepared to live in fear, which I think is very admirable. I really like that. You have other people that are very scared and locking themselves up, and then I think that's a slippery slope, particularly when you come to mental health, right? Like,
well, I think the fear alone too, kind of like in the biology belief, like the fear alone can compromise your body and like the way that it's working. If you're gonna sit inside and stress about it, um, chances are that'll be the worst time for you to get it. You're,
man,
so
stress is one of the worst things for your immune system. Not like, sorry, I should make that distinction. Chronic stress is one of the worst things for your immune system. A little bit of stress is good.
mhm,
Exercise, freaking out about a job interview or an exam, those things are good. They up your performance. Freaking out for a competition, they're good, but it's all acute, right? Your stress goes up, comes back down. If you go up and then you keep like operating at that stress level, oh, COVID, I'm going to check the news. Oh my God, there's protests. Oh, I can't look at that. Oh, I listen to the radio, there's more issues, and you keep getting that spike, terrible for you. So
mhm,
bad. So bad, because when you get those spikes, everything in your body's mobilized. Your sugars are going, your heart rate's going, you're putting all your systems under this big stress because it's fight or flight or freeze or whatever. Now they're talking about freeze, right? You got the three F's, but your body's primed for that. It's not focusing on digestion. It's not
mhm.
focusing on your immunity. it's focusing on your immediate threat, which for a lot of people is looking at their phone, seeing bad news, and just getting that refed into their brain, right?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's one of the worst things. Anything you can do to, if you are a person like that, to bring yourself out of that state, meditation, exercise is like the closest thing to a silver bullet we have for pretty much all conditions, apart from arthritis. But like literally exercise, the right supplementation, if you can control that stress response, like ashwagandha, reishi, all of these things, L-theanine, they're so good for controlling that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of good stuff out there now too, so there's definitely options.
Yeah. What are you taking any supplements right now?
Mm, not really, honestly. Well, looking at my supplement cupboard, I generally just take like some of the B12 stuff,
Mm.
iodine little drops. I've got like some immune booster drops I take like if I feel like I'm getting something's coming on. I don't know, like I don't really get sick ever.
Mm.
But
That's
yeah,
good.
I don't take much. Some of the protein powder actually have like Botanica. Um they have ones with like enhanced stuff in it, so they'll have like ashwagandha, reishi mushrooms.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know how good it is or how much is in it comparative to like taking the supplement, but um, sometimes here and there, like I'll hear about something and test out a supplement for a bit, or
Yeah.
I don't know, just depends. I was seeing an osteopath, and
Mm.
he told me because I was doing endurance training and stuff, and we were doing a half Ironman, and he's like, "Oh yeah, you got to take all this shit. I swear it'll be like such a big difference." When you take it. So I took it all for like a couple weeks and I was like, man, I just really don't feel anything.
Yeah.
Like maybe a little bit, but it wasn't by any means like, oh shit, that really made a difference.
Mm.
So I don't know. I haven't really felt that with much. I just feel like I eat so clean and stuff now usually that it's hard to beat it. I feel like if you're eating shitty and you just maybe downed a bunch of supplements that for a couple weeks that were good for you, you probably noticed it. But like
Mm.
maybe I just didn't. So I'm not sure. But I'm always curious to try things, and that's usually somewhere that I lack too. It's like I'll get something and forget to take it, or
Mm.
whatever it is. So, but I always like to or mean to test trying things because I'm a big believer too in just trying new shit and testing it out. Like, how do I know any of this stuff? Something could be really good, and I'm just missing it because I haven't given it a shot or whatever, right?
Well,
So,
exactly. And it depends on your situation, right? Like,
mm-hmm,
no one's going to take the same supplements. And if they do, it's kind of like, it's a silly thing to do. You should do
mm-hmm,
it based on your situation, right? It's like a vegan and myself will take very different supplements. Like
mm-hmm,
someone who isn't very active and myself will take very different supplements. Someone who has high cholesterol and another person who doesn't will take something very different, right? And I think
mm-hmm,
where they really shine is, like you said, like after you've dialed in every other aspect of your life, that's when you'll get benefit from them. Like instead of like having everything going crappy and then taking it and trying to find a benefit, I think look at your situation, see what will benefit you, and then try it once you've exhausted all other means. So
mm-hmm.
like for yourself, when you're training for and when you're doing the half Ironman, right? Like you'd want to take certain things that will help with your endurance. And really, I can't think of too many that would be great. I mean, creatine maybe would have been good for you, cordyceps. But other than that, it's not really like maybe some electrolytes if you start cramping up. But that's
Mm-hmm.
it. And I truly believe like people, what frustrates me is when people like get started on a fitness journey, let's say, and then before even finding their baseline, they get started, they buy all their new clothes, they buy their supplements, and then they go right in. I don't think they should do that. Like, by all means, if you need new clothes, buy new clothes. But like, do your do your exercise, find your baseline, find that plateau where you simply can't go any further. This is what I like to do with my martial arts all the time. Find where you can't go any further, where you need to improve, and then try something. And that's when you know it will really work. Can you break past that plateau? Okay, then it's probably working. If you
Mm-hmm.
can't, that's really not the one for you, right?
Yeah, you're kind of never really setting that baseline. You're just like randomly trying so much shit, you don't know what's going on.
Exactly. You're trying to be a super athlete when you're just starting your journey. You're trying to run before you can walk.
Mm-hmm.
That's essentially it. Like, even if you look at these like top athletes, they start supplementing, but in the beginning of their careers, it's like they didn't have that. They were just working hard. They were just grinding the whole time, you know? And that's what they're for. They're for that extra edge once you have hit that sort of plateau.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point.
Mm.
Yeah. Well, what do we got here? I don't know. Do you want to do? Is there anything else that you is on your mind?
No, I think we touched on a lot of it. I'm grateful to be on. And like I said, I keep saying it. I probably sound like a groupie by now, but I really appreciate what you guys are doing. I think it's really good. You should keep doing it because, there's a lot of people who, I mean, even in the past, right, when I had all that stuff going on that I mentioned, I really wouldn't want to talk to people about it. And now as I've come through those experiences, you sort of realize it is good to talk about it. It's not only good for you, but it could be good for someone else. And having a platform like this where people are like, oh, damn, maybe I should sort of open up and it's not going to be like this all the time. It's a good thing, especially for people who can't look into the future and see past some horrible circumstances that they're in, right? So, no, I just want to thank you and congratulate you guys on your cause. It's really cool.
Thanks, man. I really appreciate the support and I appreciate you coming out, being willing to speak on it. That's huge. And getting to know you, like I love doing this and getting to meet new people and hear about their lives and everything that they've got going on. I mean, I learn so much every time, and I like that now this is public and everybody can learn the same things as me and listen to everything. So I think, yeah, man, it's awesome, and hopefully one day I can. Well, I'm sure I'll meet you in person eventually.
Oh, for sure, for
Uh,
sure. And I have to say, I've got a favor to ask you. I want you to try at least one jiu-jitsu session. Doesn't have to be where I train. That it can be after the pandemic if you're worried about that, but like try it out.
I'll
Try one
have to.
jiu-jitsu
I'll
session.
have to do it. I mean, I used to do stuff where I'd try something new, like once a month or whatever. And it's been a
Yeah.
long time since I've done that, and I miss that too. Like for me, that's big, just pushing and getting out of my comfort zone. So I'll have to use that as the next thing.
And that's huge, right? And that's again a whole thing we didn't touch on, but I think that's a brilliant thing. Like being able to force yourself outside your comfort zone. That's where you grow. And it's that old cliche. Everyone's hearing that now, but it's so true. So true. My mum dragged me kicking and screaming into that dojo, and like I loved it. It changed my life. It really did. And I'm not going to have that cliche that martial arts saved my life. No, it didn't save my life, but I could be a very different person now had my mum not forced me to do it. And that's a good story because it's not like, yeah, I did it. I forced myself to do it. I didn't. I wasn't going to do it. I was not going to do it, mate. I was going to sit at home. I was going to play video games. My mum forced me to do it. So don't be like that. Like, force yourself to do it. And I think like that trying one new thing a month, of course, COVID's kind of put a spanner in the works there, but don't be me. Don't get someone else to have to force you to do it. Like, do it yourself, and you get so much reward from it.
Yeah, no, that's great advice. Get out there and just do it.
Right then, brother. Well, pleasure to talk to you. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, no, thanks for coming, and we'll be in touch.
Sounds good, brother. See you soon.
Okay, bye.